Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I promised I'd do a Wednesday night Q&A. Hopefully this uploads on Wednesday night. If not, it's a Thursday morning Q&A for you on all things Tottenham Hotspur. Going to do a little bit of housekeeping first, just tidy up some little bits and pieces that have happened in the last couple of days. Not least, this afternoon we got the Independent Commission's report into the red card and subsequent fine for Antonio Conte and ban for Thomas Tuchel and fine. And it's really interesting. The reason it's one of those where, don't worry, I'll kind of fly through the slightly boring bits in it. But actually, both Conte and Tuchel sent letters to the FA and the Commission for this hearing that was going to be not done in person but in paper. I just find it really interesting because we wouldn't otherwise get to know what these letters said from these two, obviously world-renowned football coaches. So, again, as always, for anyone that might not be aware of what happened, of course, both men, straight red card at the final, just after the final whistle. Conte went up, tried to shake his hand, get on done with it. Tuchel wasn't best impressed with the fact that Conte didn't really look at him in the process, grabbed his hand, held on to it. Conte whirled around in disgust, half being pulled, half in disgust. And and then they had that all coming together. As they always say, the old cliche, handbags, all of that, wasn't really anything physical going on, but, bringing the game into disrepute, that was the charge, so they had this hearing. So Anthony Taylor submitted a report. That is all very jargony, so I'm not going to say that. Essentially, it is, in very quick summary, he saw the handshake resulted in prolonged physical contact between them. And as a result, an aggressive confrontation ensued, which caused a further mass confrontation involving the technical areas and players, which I guess is kind of true. That's what happened. I wouldn't say it was, people having a big old fight or anything, but it was, I guess, a mass confrontation. That probably is fair. So, Conte admitted the charge first on the Wednesday. Tuchel did the same the following day, and both decided to have the paper hearing, which is exactly what it sounds. They'll just get the notification of what happened. They'll write their letters of defence. It's all done on paper. Obviously, I'm sure it was emails in this modern world. Technically, in this modern world, they could have done it over Zoom, but doesn't seem to have been the case. So, Conte's letter, he wrote, and it's really interesting to see the two different ways that the head coaches saw the same situation. I'll be honest, the truth is somewhere in the middle, maybe leaning slightly towards where Conte was at with it. I'll let you decide. You're probably mostly Spurs fans, so I'm sure I know what you'll decide. Conte's letter, he wrote, they kind of give you sections of it rather than the whole thing, but there's a fair whack here. So Conte's letter. I would first like to apologise to the Commission for the events that happened after the game against Chelsea on Sunday, which is not something I like being associated with. And I have no idea why I'm doing this as a proper English accent, when clearly it would be in a more Italian accent. But I'm not going to do an Italian accent because it would be horrific. Happened after the game against Chelsea on Sunday, which is not something I like being associated with or seeing on a football field. For this reason, I have therefore admitted the charge of improper conduct. The referee blew the final whistle. I wanted to congratulate my players and acknowledge the away fans as well as the home fans, who I still hold with great affection after my time managing the club. So not to create any further unease between us, I wanted to quickly shake hands and move on. I extended my hands towards him, Tuchel, with the intention of briefly shaking his. However, he grabbed my hand and did not release his grip. Due to his very firm grip, my arm jarred, causing me to be pulled backwards. I was both surprised and unhappy that such handshake caused me to be pulled back with such physical force. I did not overreact to this provocation and with the circumstances was proud of how I handled myself. Had I made any reaction, then I understand the situation would have been much worse. I love the drama. I love the way... I don't know whether Antonio wrote that himself or whether someone else wrote that for him. But it's beautifully dramatic. I'm going to tell myself that he wrote it because it's beautiful. It very much takes you into the moment. And you kind of almost feel... It's almost at the point of almost feels like he was physically assaulted by a handshake. It's very good. Tuchel's letter. Notice the switch around and how this all sounds. At the end of the match, again, I'm not going to do it in German. At the end of the match, I approached Mr. Conte to shake his hand as an act of sportsmanship. Mr. Conte took my hand but did not look at me, and I considered his demeanour to be a sign of disrespect towards me. I therefore held onto his hand as he walked past me and told him to look me in the eyes when he shakes my hand. Mr. Conte replied in Italian and acted very aggressively towards me. I did not react to his aggression and did not say anything insulting to him. I acknowledged that I could and should have dealt with Mr. Conte's conduct towards me in a more appropriate manner. For example, by speaking to him privately afterwards. I apologised to the FA and to the Regulatory Commission for having to bring and consider the charge. Yeah. I think what's not helped him there in a way, I guess, is that he's kind of admitted that he was the agitator. Even by saying that Conte reacted aggressively, he is pretty much admitting it's my fault it all kicked off. So in the released reasons in the report, that it says that the Commission decided it was quite clearly Tuchel who instigated the confrontation between himself and Conte by choosing to grip the latter's hand and jolt him back after he had passed by. Had he not gripped Conte's hand, the confrontation between the two and the subsequent melee that followed would not have occurred. Tuchel grabbed Conte's hand for the reason Tuchel gripping Conte's hand for the reason he gave was simply not justifiable. Cursory handshakes are a common occurrence at the end of highly charged football matches, and there exists no obligation for one person to look the other in the eye while shaking hands. Tuchel telling Conte to look at him in the eyes while gripping his hand and not allowing Conte to move away was a highly provocative act. Conte was unwillingly pulled, literally, into the confrontation with Tuchel. Conte did react aggressively to those actions, but the Commission did not consider him to have hugely overreacted given the circumstances. So essentially the Commission saying, if anyone is grabbed by Thomas Tuchel, you're quite okay to react aggressively. Conte did remain irate after he had extricated himself from Tuchel's grip and others had separated the two. Conte appears to have entered into a brief but heated verbal exchange with the Chelsea player Cesar Azpilicueta before leaving the pitch. The confrontation between Tuchel and Conte caused a mass gathering of staff, players and stewards that could have easily escalated the situation. Further down, cutting out loads of boring stuff, the report says, while certain aspects of Conte's behaviour could be considered as being improper, indeed he admitted as much, the Commission considered Tuchel to be largely culpable for the incident and unanimously felt that this ought to be clearly and definitively reflected in the level of sanction imposed on them. Both made written apologies and admitted the charges. Conte had one admitted charge in his previous 5-year disciplinary record, but this was nearly 5 years ago, back in November 2017. Whew. So, as you know, Conte was fined £15,000, Tuchel £35,000 along with a one-game touchline ban. The report concluded the Commission felt that the above sanctions reflected the seriousness of the behaviour of both Thomas Tuchel and Antonio Conte during the incident, but also reflected that the former was significantly more culpable than the latter in respect to causation. So there you go. A hearing, all of that, just to tell you, yeah, Thomas Tuchel was the agitator and did kind of, make it all kind of happen, I guess, is what they're saying. So that's why he got the ban and Conte didn't.